I was sitting in a math talk in Zurich, and well, the first part about that story is great, that they ask at the beginning of, I was there for a year, and they ask at the beginning of every seminar, which language would you like to give me to give the talk in? And I was always the one going, English. And then they were like, and they did.
Swahili.
Yeah, it was like they had some choice of whatever language we wanted them to give it in. Yeah, right. And so anyway, I was sitting next to this person who's very bright, Shahar Moses, and somehow the speaker said one thing, like within the first, say, 3 minutes of the talk. I didn't hear one word of the talk after that. It was because I got stuck on this one mathematical fact. And I asked him to prove it. Or I said, gosh, how do you prove that? And I said, that's not totally clear. And so the two of us spent the entire rest of the talk, and he wrote the most beautiful proof. I still remember what the fact is. The fact is, in fact, I think this proof appears in Breitz and Heffliger. It is the proof that there are only finitely many conjugacy classes of finite order elements in a hyperbolic group. Okay, now why is that? You think, well, that's stupid. I'm sure that everybody knows that, and it's true. But the thing is that the proof that should, I mean,
a good 2/3 of the people in the class did not have that.
Well, I mean, the proof should be, in some sense, there's a moral proof, and it doesn't work for what. This is why I was so confused. Why
the Bible says so.
Well, yeah, right. The Bible says this is the proof. It says you take a finite order element. It has a bounded orbit. If it's acting on a cat zero space, for example, let's say it's a group acting properly discontinuously on a cat zero space, so it has a bounded orbit, and you should take the center of that, and that'll be a fixed point. So you can take a center of a bounded set, and it's a very usual process. So basically, all your finite order elements are stabilizers, and then you can prove that there's only finitely many conjugacy classes of those. So that's the proof. But it turns out it just doesn't work for hyperbolic. For a general delta hyperbolic space, you can't use the same argument because you can't do centers. But that's off topic, totally off topic, anecdotal story over. All right. So I'm here to talk a little bit about how to keep up with current research. And one good way to do it is to elbow the person next to you in the seminar talk. Actually, I think there are 3 top ways of doing it. So the first one is going to talks. It's by far the quickest way to keep current with what's going on out there is to go. Now, I know going to talks takes time, and I know sometimes that it does not pay off. Like, I'm going to say the majority of the time, it actually doesn't pay off. Like, I know that, you know that. You show up to a talk and you're like, oh, I liked one word in the title, and now I don't even like that word anymore. So, I mean, I get that it's a time investment, but for example, say with our geometric group theory and topology seminar, you know, most of the time we have pretty good speakers, and we've gotten it to a point where we try to get our speakers to really, you know, speak to a level that graduate students can understand. But even if you can't understand 80% of the talk, at least getting the statements of the theorems and seeing what kinds of theorems people are proving without having to read them, without having to go out and look for them, there you are, just sitting in a room for 1 hour and it's all being thrown at you at once. There's no faster way to keep up. Or even if you can't go to the talk, read the abstract, because usually they'll say what their theorem is. So one of the things I systematically do, even to this day, is I read the abstracts of other talks that I fantasize about going to that I know I don't have the time to go to, because I don't have that much time. So as a student, you might have more time to go to talks, but that time will get eaten up as you get a little bit older. And at least looking at the seminar announcements, and it sounds like a stupid thing to do, but you'd be amazed how much you learn from that. Like, oh gosh, is that really a problem? Like, why would anybody care why these groups have been in those groups? And then you start to see there's like, wow, there's 7 talks on that in the Boston area. That must be a hot research topic. So I think that, especially living in somewhere like Boston where you get these seminar announcements all the time and you're not going to be able to go to the talk, just looking that over. That's just sort of a surface level first thing you should be doing. Something that I did as a graduate student, which you don't have to do, is I used to, and everybody thought I was crazy for doing it, but I used to have one of those little, you know those composition notebooks that you used for like lab classes in high school? Because I always thought those were really cool. I had one, and I would every week, once a week, I scheduled a time, a block of a couple hours to walk to the library. Nobody would do that anymore. Walk to the library and actually look at research journals. I mean, now that would be like a field trip. Nobody does that. But I think I would go over there and I would sit for hours and I would just look at just look. Again, sometimes I'd read the abstract only, sometimes I'd read the introduction, and sometimes I'd find myself reading the entire paper. And I would be like, wow, I can't believe I just read, a paper. So I think though that was just a good ritual for me to do, is to spend some time every week, even if it's only an hour. Like now I don't have as much time to do that, but sometime every week reading other people's mathematics. I mean, it does two things. One is it keeps you current and you're understanding what results are out there, but the other thing is it also helps you as a student develop a writing style. Like nobody teaches you how to write mathematics. Everybody learns how to write proofs, and we all stumble through some courses or whatever. But once you actually get to the point where you're writing your thesis or your first paper, I don't know that there's anywhere where you actually learn how to do that. I don't know of a course anybody teaches. I mean, I certainly haven't told my students how to do it. They're probably like, yeah, we know. But the way I learned was to read other people's papers and found what I appreciated. And I think that's an important thing, is to figure out how to communicate your mathematics to the rest of the world. That's a hard thing to do. But also, like I said, I think it keeps you current of what are the results that are out there. So then the question becomes, well, okay, I could just show up at the library and start reading journals, but I also didn't just go and read random journals. I had to figure out which journals or which research paper should I read. I'm not going to go to some probability journal and read that. It didn't have anything to do with what I was studying. So what I did was I figured out who are the people that I respect their mathematics, and I would look for them. I would look for those people's papers, and I would read them. Now I just go to their webpage. Of course, I don't have to go to the library anymore. I just go to their webpage, and I see if they have any new results out there, or I type their name into MathSciNet. Are people aware of Math Reviews, the Math Reviews site? Or does anybody know? So there's two sites that are really important for this, because like I said, none of you have to walk to the library anymore. So Math Reviews is a service that's run through it's run by the AMS, and what it is so somebody publishes a paper, and that has to go through a referee process. And Genevieve and I just talked. I know she's speaking in OGSM in a couple of weeks, and she's going to talk a little bit more about how to do research in that sense. But so she'll talk about that. So you publish a paper. Then that goes through a referee process and blah, blah, blah. She'll talk about that. Then it's there. So how does that paper get communicated to the outside world? Well, it used to be. It just got thrown in the library, and hopefully somebody read it. There's this procedure called Math Reviews where, say, I'm a professor. I will get sent something from Math Reviews. You can sign on to be a math reviewer. So I am a math reviewer. I'm a member of the AMS, and I do this as a service. They'll send me a paper and say, will you review this paper? So basically what I do is I look at the paper. I don't have to referee it. Somebody's already done that. I get to read it. I get to read it, look at the abstract, look at the introduction, and read it as deeply as I want to. And then I write a little blurb about it. Sometimes I think, that paper was not that great. I think I'll just copy the abstract and leave it at that. Or it might be something I'm really interested in, and I might write a really long math review. And then I post it. I give it back to Math Reviews, and they have a site. So you can go and you can say, oh, such and such paper, I heard about this paper. You can go to Math Reviews, click on the Math Review, and you'll get a paragraph or several paragraphs of another mathematician's view of that paper. Not a technical, it's usually pretty conversational. They might state the main theorem, but they also try to say, oh yeah, the technique used was this, or it's very conversational, and so it really lets you know whether you want to delve any further into that paper. And it's written by somebody who's knowledgeable on that subject. So that's kind of that's like you not having to go to the library. Somebody's already done it for you, and you just get to read the outcome of that.
Does anybody rate them?
They don't rate them.
4 out of 5 stars?
They don't rate them. I'm kind of glad they don't rate them. That would be kind of... But you can tell, there's, with anything that involves more than one human being, there's politics. So you can sometimes see, I think, in Math Reviews, you can see not so nice reviews. But most people do a really good job. I think I take them very seriously. I like to do Math Reviews. I think they're an important part of the field. So, but that's definitely one. And then the other one is the archive, where people post papers. I'll send both the links. But the archive is another one where there people post their results. Now, the archive is a little controversial, I think. But anyway, you say, okay, I have this result, and I'm going to post it to the archive. Now, that hasn't been refereed. It's not gone through a referee process. It's just a public sort of forum where you can post your paper. The good side of it is that you can kind of maybe you can stake a claim on that result. You could, you know, if say you're a graduate student especially, and you're working on something and you're afraid you're going to get scooped because you heard about this, that, or the other, and you get, I just heard of this happening to a friend of mine's graduate student. He was working on this problem, was freaking out that he was going to get scooped, and then he just like, I don't know, didn't sleep for several days and wrote up this result and posted it on the archive. And in a way, that was good for him to be able to do that, to get it out there. At the same time, if it's an incorrect proof, you know, people sort of, I don't know, people can be really ugly about it, and you know, you can say, well, do you really have a claim on that if you put up an incorrect proof? Not really. You really don't have a claim on that. So it's a little controversial, but I think a lot of young people especially use the archive for posting their preliminary versions of their papers. And not just young people, all people, all mathematicians, I think, are using the archive. And the nice thing is you can choose which subject area. It's not the AMS mathematics subject classification. It's done differently than that, but it's just a list of them, and you just click on the ones you're interested in, and the papers from that area will pop up.
It's hosted by Cornell, and it's also like all of physics and computer science.
That's right. Yeah, there's other subjects other than math on there. So that's a great place, even just to, you can also have things automatically emailed to you to say, okay, I want to know, you know, each day or each week or something of, I want to know which new papers came out in this area. You could have it emailed to you. I know Ziggy has it done. I tried that once and I had to shut it off because my inbox was getting full and it was freaking me out. So I don't have that. When I want to look at the archive, I just go to the archive instead of the archive coming to me. Yes?
When I go to the archive, I have a hard time like finding papers older than past month.
Okay. Well, you should. Well, okay. One thing you can do. Well, you shouldn't. It should be able to. Can't you search by author? I think you should be able to search by author.
I search like by subjects.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Probably. I mean, I don't usually have to do it. If the paper's been on there over a month, I generally will. You know, if it's something like that, I might either email the author myself and ask, or look on their webpage and see if they have it posted there. If I can't find it on the archive, that's what I would do.
Do you mean that you can't find specific papers you're looking for that are older than a month, or when you're on the archive scanning around for you don't know what?
Right, the second one.
Yeah. So,
oh, I see. Okay. Like you don't. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so you're not talking about a specific paper. I see. Oh. Well, yeah. I don't know how far back it would go. I think you can put in dates though. Like at the very front end, you can actually say, I want things in the last month, or I want things in the last 6 months. I think you can do it right at the very top when you first go onto the archive.
I think one thing also, I think that might go to Min's point more broadly, which is like how to figure out what's going on, is you can drill through references. Like open up like a paper you're interested in that was from the last month and see who they cite. Which you could either do directly, or there are like websites that like just keep track of the web of the citation.
Right.
And drill back to like what the correct survey papers are, or the correct original papers are to read, which will then get you closer to the base of that tree that will kind of branch out.
Well, that's another thing Math Reviews is really good for. So if you look at a specific paper on Math Reviews, it will also have the reference lists down there, and you can click on them and it will go to the Math Review for that reference. So that's kind of nice too. It's a little bit easier maybe than using the archive. So I think those are two substitutes for what I used to have to do with my little composition notebook and walking over to the library. But I think the biggest thing is I think one of the most important things is to dedicate time for that on some regular basis. I think that's really, really hard for people to do. I think people, you know, going to a seminar once a week is one way of doing it. Like coming to the GGTT seminar, that's one big thing that I tend to never ever miss, because I know that's 1 hour where I'm dedicating myself to hearing other mathematics out there. That's the very minimum that I do every week for that part of my, you know, that part of my professional development, I suppose. But I think that there's really something about reading and hearing other people's mathematics that makes your mathematics better. It makes it easier for you to put any results that you come up with in context and put them in a bigger picture and a broader framework so that people will want to read your results. I mean, in the end, there's some amount of salesmanship that goes on for all of us when we do work. We have to figure out who to direct I mean, you can't really write something unless you, or at least I can't write something without having an audience in mind who I'm going to be directing this at.
What if you can't always find such an audience? What if you're doing something and I like this is really interesting to me, but I don't think anybody's going to find this.
Well, you don't think it is, but I mean, even just doing a Google search on some topic, I think you'll find that if you're thinking about it, there's at least one other human being in the world thinking about it. I mean, I really can't imagine, you know, in this day and age, that happening. I really think there's, even just Googling it, you'd probably find somebody else thinking about it. But like I said, it's about connecting your work. It's not necessarily that you're going to find a huge audience of people that are going to read your paper, but to say my work is connected to these people's work in this way just makes you part of a bigger community. And I think that's it's a hard part of our job because nobody teaches it to you. Nobody tells you how to do it. You almost, I mean, I don't know how I learned it. I think I've done a pretty good job of it. I mean, in my own little fancy world. But I think I can remember thinking it at some point that like, oh yeah, in my introduction, I should maybe not just state my result. I should try to put it in some broader context. I mean, I had the thought, but I think that in some sense is a really important part of doing research. You'll figure that out because they're doing it too. If you read the introduction to somebody's paper, you'll see, or at least the writers that I respect and I go back to and read all their papers, that's what I see, is that they're trying to put their results in context. And they also, another thing I really like, this is one of the things I look for in a paper, is somebody who in the introduction says their results, tries to connect them to some community, and at the very end makes it clear that there are still interesting questions to ask about this. I think that's another indicator to me that, oh, this is going to be a paper worth reading for me, because they've investigated something and they still see something interesting at the end of it. I like those kinds of papers, and I can be sold on that alone. If I see that at the end, I'm like, oh, I want to read this paper because I want to see what those questions are. So that's just my own personal, my own personal take. But one more thing I think that's important is once you've picked a specific area of research, is knowing, say, a couple things. One is, who are the big names, right? So your advisor might know a few big names, but they might not know every big name in the area. You might want to, I mean, they probably will, but they might not. And sort of saying, okay, those are the big names. Those are the people whose questions mean something. If I answer the question of this famous person, that's good, right? Like, that's probably going to put me on the map quicker than just about anything. So it's important to know who those people are, and to look at their work and see, why is it that they are a big name? They must be a big name because they proved a really big theorem, or they laid out some theory that everybody wants to know, or whatever. And you should understand that as soon as you decide on some area of research. You should figure out the game. To me, that's like figuring out the rules of the game. Who are the big name people? Why are they big name people? And why am I not a big name person? No. But, or how can I be one of them? No, I think knowing the lay of the land is really important. But the other thing is knowing about journals in your area. So there are some journals in mathematics that are like the top notch for no matter what your area is. There's the Annals journal that is like, if you publish something in the Annals, then like that's your ticket to whatever you want. Like, that's like the top journal, and it's not area specific. It's not, oh, it's only for algebraic geometry, or it's only for whatever. It's the biggest results in all of mathematics get published there. So that's like top tier, right? So understanding a little bit about the structure of journals, so that you can say, oh my gosh, I got this Invenciones paper and it's so hard. Well, it should be. It's an Invenciones paper. I mean, those, again, that's another sort of top tier level journal where those are going to be serious results. If you want to know where your peers are publishing their thesis, some of them might be publishing in there, and that would be like really awesome. But most of them aren't. And there are journals, say, I mean, I can speak for geometric group theory type journals. There's a list of them that would be very, very respectable for you to publish your thesis in, or results from your thesis that would be very respectable. Some that are, there's a range of them. And it's important to know what other results are being published in those journals, so that you can figure out where you belong in the game. I think that's part of the importance of keeping up with current research, not just so that you can know all the math, but to know kind of where you fit in the world of mathematical research. It's a funny world, but I think it's important to always know that, and then once you get sort of the lay of the land that way with the journals, when you get to the point where you're ready to publish and you have to pick a journal, you'll have some indication. Of course, your advisor should help you with that sort of thing too. Your advisor should say, ooh, geometry and topology, that might be shooting a little high, but that's okay, whatever. So you want to get some advice on that. But again, just go to your advisor and say, which journals should I even read? Like, who who are the people and what are the journals that I should even go and look for papers in, and then that way, or what are the names I should be looking, names or journals, it doesn't matter, both if you want to keep up with. So that's sort of that's my take on it. Is one, that it's really important to keep up with current research for both of those reasons. One is because you don't ever want to look stupid. I mean, you really want to know what you're talking about when you go and talk about your work. You want to know other people's work to build upon, but also for your own self to know where you sort of fit in. So if there's specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Or did I just wow you with my complete annihilation of that topic?
For no other reason than continuity, let's clap.
Oh, good.
Now we can ask questions.
Did you see that pose for the camera? It was pretty good. And I see Andy laughing at me. How many people have used math reviews? Have people ever looked at math reviews? Yes, a couple people. How about the archive? So people are aware of the archive. Yeah, I think math reviews is better in that sense. Like I said, it's like reading the Cliff Notes. It's cheating a little bit, but it's that first level of, do I want to look any further? Yeah, I think that's worth it to do that. So I'll send out a link for that.
What? Who do you have to be to sign up for math reviews?
I'm pretty sure our math department, like if you're here in the math department, I'm pretty sure you can use it.
I don't know what you mean to like read the papers and read the reviews, but like who can sign up to do reviews?
Oh, to do
for
reviews.
papers?
I see. Actually, I have no idea. We could ask, but I think probably. I mean, I would imagine you have to be a member of the AMS.
Like all grad students are automatically members of the AMS.
Yeah, my guess is you're not eligible. Although you'd probably be better at it than most of the faculty, would be my guess. That's an untapped source that maybe they should be thinking about. In fact, that would be a great service if you think about it. Have graduate students do math reviews as part of, I mean, I'm not saying have them like torture them with it. I mean like do one or two of them in the course of their graduate studies to get a feel for what it means to analyze somebody else's work. I mean, it's not going to be graded or looked at, but that's actually a really, I don't know, I think that's a neat idea that I just had. Pass that on.
I wonder how much of that is just the politics of someone not being able to take a less than stellar review, even less if they feel the person is not their peer that's reviewing them.
Yeah, I'm sure there's politics. We could ask Ziggy because he has something to do with math reviews. He has some important thing that has. We'll have to ask him about that. But yeah, I think that's. It would be great. I think if grad students could do math reviews, but my guess is they can't. And I actually don't really ever remember signing on to do them. I just sort of. I think it's just because I'm a member of the AMS and they ask people, and I said yes because I never say no. So, but every once in a while I will say no to math review. If I get sometimes I'll get 4 or 5 of them in a very short period of time, and I say I can't do this, But and of course once you're out and you're in as a working mathematician, and you get asked to referee papers. That's another huge responsibility, but it's also another way to. You definitely keep abreast of current research when you're refereeing papers, because you really have to put a lot of time into that. But I think Genevieve will talk a little bit more about those sorts of parts. Her talk will be equally entertaining and chaotic, because we just had one of those Kim and Genevieve conversations upstairs, where we don't really actually say anything productive, but yeah, we know what the other one was talking about. I know that's on video now.
Do grad students ever referee papers?
I don't think grad students referee papers either. I think one thing I wonder, now that you asked me that question though, is I wonder if, I guess they probably don't do this either. When you get it, so like for example, with NSF grants, if you get an NSF grant, after you get one, you're generally asked to review other people's, like after that process. And I'm wondering if, I guess that graduate students don't even review the NSF graduate fellowships. That would kind of be an interesting thing as well. They probably don't. But I don't think that. Here's what probably does happen though. I know for a fact this happens. It doesn't happen with me, but it happens with other people. Grad students do referee papers for their advisor, and then they don't get any credit for it. Yeah, so I've often thought about it. Like I thought, wow, could I actually get away with that? And then I say to myself, no, that seems like exploitation. And so I've never done it. But I have thought that that there's a part of it that's a good idea. Like I can see the good in that, to say, hey, you look at such and such in this paper and look at it really, really carefully. I mean, that's what I'm supposed to be doing as the referee. So I think it's a little bit of exploitation. Personally, I think that's exploitation. I think, because that's really my job,
Why don't
right?
you just do that for math reviews with your grad students?
I've thought about doing it for math reviews, because math reviews I don't actually feel like that's exploitation, because there's not some sort of, it's not a quality check like a referee's report. It really isn't that. It's just another person's perspective. I just had a paper I did math reviews for, that I wrote a review for. In fact, it was the one that I was just talking with you about, Charlie, about Henry Wilton's paper. And I thought about it. I thought about making Charlie do the math review for that paper. But I didn't. In the end, I did the math review, and then I just got so excited about the result that I just told Charlie about the result. So I got all the benefit from doing that math review, I think. But yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Remember, the system is called peer review, not subordinate review.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. That's why I've always had a problem with it. But I know that other people do it, and that's probably not. Again, it's a little bit like saying, oh yeah, we shouldn't make our grad students do this, that, or the other. But some grad students might want the opportunity to do things and they don't feel exploited, right? Like there might be a graduate student who says, I really want to do that. I want to independently do this math review, show it to you, and use it as a professional development moment. Then to me, that's not exploitation. If a graduate student came to me and said, I really, really, really am dying to referee a paper, I'd be like, I would let them referee the paper, we would discuss it and talk about it, but I would also feel very, very compelled to write the editor a letter and say that I was doing it and to let the editor know that a grad student helped me do this. And I would feel like that was, I would not want to be under the radar about that.
Is this a subtle hint for Charlie and I to ask you to?
Well, now I'm in the, I just finished refereeing a paper that actually either one of you could have refereed. Actually Yulon should have refereed it, as who should have refereed it, but it was, and I found a mistake, but I fixed it, so that's nice. I was a nice referee for this paper. I'm very happy about it.
I would not do it, but for political reasons.
Yeah.
Not because of it. It's the same, like, fundamentally it's the same as, like, the fact that undergraduate parents demand that full tenured faculty professor teach undergraduates.
Yeah.
Which is, that's the entire, like, moral structure of the peer review system. It doesn't mean that you're actually going to get better reviews than if a graduate student who knows the same amount of material does it, but the entire artifice only, like, holds up and has respect because people generally believe something and it's more or less, like, followed.
But for example, with math reviews, I think it would be an interesting thing to think about. I'm talking about, now I'm just like totally off topic, but in the broader mathematical community of thinking about the idea that Sarah just said, in a way, suppose that faculties and advisors and students could use that as an opportunity for professional development. And if everybody was on board with it and everybody understood that when a review was posted, that the advisor and the student sign it and say we did this together, then I think that would be a really cool professional development tool. Plus it would also get you in the habit of writing more conversationally about math. That's also a hard thing to do, is to be able to look at a paper that's 37 pages long, very, very technical and filled with mathematics, and be able to write 4 paragraphs about it that are meaningful, that aren't just technical crap. I mean, it's very, very difficult to read a paper that long, try to state the result, understand the result, and have a normal English conversation about it. I mean, for 4 paragraphs. That's a great skill to have. And I think that's why I enjoy doing math reviews, is it forces me to do that about a paper that I'm probably not going to understand most of the details of. But as a mathematician, they picked me to say, they said, oh, she's written papers related to this. She should be able to see this result and say something coherent about it. So I think that's pretty cool. I think that's a cool idea. I think we should present that to the math review people, whoever they are.
Good job, Sue.
I wonder if there are open journals that might allow grad students to peer review for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Do you mean open as in open access or open as in some other definition?
Yeah, open access.
If I were the editor of an open access journal, I would never, like open access journals suffer a credibility issue. Like, I would not want to do anything, I would not want to lead closed journals in the level of, in innovative ways editorially. I would want, just maybe.
I would, if it's not a standard thing for other journals to do, I would want to grab involvement by the upcoming mathematics body.
I agree, like, that would present, like, have better results. I just think that is going to even more depth in the argument that it's a fly-by-night journal with no editorial, like, discretion, or, I don't know.
Well,
I'm worried about all the counter-arguments, not the actual case.
I think a better, or maybe a different way of thinking about that idea is what we were just sort of saying, is that these are parts of the job that as a working academic mathematician you would have to do, right? You would have to review, you would have to referee papers, and you don't have to ever do a math review, but as you'll find, there's so much more fun than refereeing. You'll want to do them. So and the fact of the matter is, nobody teaches you how. You have no experience doing it until you're actually asked to do something.
We're doing it in our applied math seminar.
The
We have to learn how to write referee reports.
Oh, that's nice. So okay, so you're doing that as part of your training. I think that's perfect. But I also think it would be nice if it could be something that the whole mathematical community realizes is something that should be done for all graduate students, and has a place where people would be perfectly okay saying, this is a paper I would like. So for example, with conference proceedings, so when you go to a conference, sometimes they'll say, oh, we're having a conference proceedings. We're going to write this up and do whatever. And most people tend to put sort of less serious results. Like it might be some small special case of a paper they already had written, or some addendum that they want to put in a conference proceedings. And then it would make it a little bit more official. Sometimes those are refereed and sometimes they're not refereed. It kind of depends on the choice of the editor. And if they did something, to say like, oh, well, we could ask some grad students to referee, and everybody understood that this was going on and it was all above board or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I think it's great that the applied math seminar is doing it. Maybe everybody should be doing that. But I also think the mathematical community as a whole should realize there's some responsibility we have to train people to do what's probably the hardest and most important part of your job when you get out of here. Maybe grant proposal writing is even harder and maybe even more important. But especially for applied mathematicians, I'm sure that's probably more important. But I think, you never get told how to do it. You don't have the experience doing it. So most of you won't even see an official referee's report as a graduate student, unless you go to publish a paper yourself before you get out. If you do that.
This is very common in applied math.
Yeah.
We all publish papers. And
right. So you'll get a report back.
You also have to know how to reply to that.
That's right. Yeah, that's great. I think that's a bit of a bummer on the peer side. It tends not to happen until you're out. Or you're.
If you could bring one.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, look, I'm totally setting up her talk. She so owes me a below-go lunch. Yeah, she could maybe bring. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I could. Well, she could. She could bring things that either reports she's written or reports she's received. That's probably not a bad thing. Totally set her up. This is awesome. That's a good point, though. I'm taking that point that you guys just told me about the applied math seminar. I'm taking that point to heart and telling everybody I know about it.
Mark, the checkout lady,
elbow everybody in sight now. Everybody's getting an elbow. Hey, guess what?
Sitting next to you in seminars.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? I don't have any set of questions because all of my questions I asked you yesterday, which you all said during the talk.
What's your favorite math book?
Oh, my favorite math book.
Like today.
Not the one that I can't use Bryson Heffler again because I've already used that one. Did I already say the one about the original?
I mean, if you want to just give the bare minimum number of books.
No, I'll give the. I don't know if I've said this one. I think one of my other favorite ones. I hope I haven't said it because I'll feel stupid if I did. Was the translated papers of Max Dane. Did I say that one?
That was the one last time.
That was the one last time? Oh, okay, that's one of my favorites. Of course, there's Bryson Heffler. That's a good one. What's another one? I like John Mayer's book. I think his book is great. That's a really groups, graphs, and geometry.
The elements in the original coin Greek.
Can't say that's one of mine. There was this one though. There was a complex analysis book that's sitting on my shelf, and I can't remember who wrote it, that I've gone to many, many times. I secretly, because I don't tell anybody I ever read analysis. Did I just say that on tape? But I love that book because it's a very, very, I don't know, I like that book, and I can't think of who the author is or what the name of it is. But anyway, it's a complex analysis book. I want to be on record saying that.
Why is it better than other complex analysis?
Because it's clearly written by a topologist. That's why. It's that simple. A geometer / topologist. It's so clear. I don't even know the person's name. I don't even know what they do, but it's clear that they are a topologist or a geometer.
Is complex analysis book different from all other complex analysis?
Yeah. That could be your new ending question for your kids.
We keep a seat open for William Thurston.
Well, thank you for your time.
All right, let's give him another.